Welcome to Stormwater Drainage Solutions. So this video is for all of our hardcore drainage nerds that are out there. If you enjoy storm drains and dewatering, then this video you may find interesting. Let's go ahead and get started. Basically, I'm putting a triple wall system, a little run right through here, because I want to see how well this stuff holds up in the ground over time. And I'm going to be using it to get footage. Basically, triple wall has 3 layers, has a laminated exterior, it has a HDP smooth interior, and then it has a HDP corrugated interior, just to add strength to the pipe. I mean, you can step on this pipe, it doesn't crush down. Granted, this is a budget friendly pipe right here. I mean, this is like, you know, if you're on a tight budget and you need a cheap pipe just to try to get the job done, you know, then triple wall could be the answer for you. Now, would I recommend using this pipe a lot and for long runs and, you know, very important applications? Probably not, because it is a very budget friendly pipe. But I just had some extra laying around that we're never going to use, so I'm going to go ahead and just use it for this project. All right, so we got the hose running, and I want to check the trench, and I want to see where that water is running and where it's getting stopped up at. So it's kind of getting stopped up a little bit right there, so we'll have to kind of skim that. Looks like we got pretty good fall through here. Looks like it's flowing pretty nicely. And then I think right in here, yep, it's going to start getting stopped up a little bit. So we'll have to skim that a little bit more, and we'll have to skim through here a little bit more right there. See how it's starting to get stopped up? Because there's a slight hump in the trench right there. So we'll skim through that. We'll skim through that, and we'll skim over there. But it's moving pretty nicely though. All right, so we got this pretty much trenched out, and we have it all the way here to our French drain. Now, obviously, we always preach about never putting solid pipe discharging into a French drain. Like I've stated earlier in other videos, if you watch our channel, then you already know this. This big blind inlet here, this is an experiment. This is for research purposes, for study. I'm doing this on my own property, and I'm not doing it on my client's property, because I want to see different things that are going to happen. Now, when I do install this solid pipe here with different basins, I'm going to be putting traps in certain areas to catch as much sediment, grass clippings, debris, things that make it into this solid line. I'm going to be attempting to collect as much of that as possible before it discharges into the perforated pipe. Now, obviously, I wouldn't do this type of stuff on clients' properties. I'm doing it here for research and development purposes, because we want to see what happens, and what better way to experiment and do it other than to just do it and see what the results are over the years. All right, so I just went ahead and I cut open the fabric. So this is a fully contained French drain that comes out of this blind inlet, and it ends like roughly like right around there, and then it transfers into solid pipe, and then that solid pipe carries it to that distribution box over there. So this is pretty much a fully contained French drain that I just cut into. Now, we used limestone for this French drain because we wanted to see what would happen over time with it. I don't really like using limestone for French drains, to be honest with you. I don't like using limestone for French drains. I never use limestone, but there are some guys that do use limestone, and the stone that they get is more washed than this. The limestone that we got was really, really inexpensive, because obviously we were using it for the ground here for the rock yard, so we weren't going to pay higher price for washed limestone. So the limestone that we got out of the quarry here, it came with a ton of fines in it, ton of sediment in it. You see all that sediment? So you don't want to use that for a French drain, obviously. But you can see how well this fabric kept this sediment out. So this was the limestone and sediment that we put on top of this fabric. And the limestone that's in the fabric with the perforated pipe, it's the French Drain Man High Octane. I mean, it actually is cleaner. It's cleaner inside of here than it is outside. So that's pretty interesting. So that tells me that as the water is washing through here, it's actually carrying this sediment out of here. So that's pretty interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut this fabric some more right here so I can get in here, because basically what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a Y connection here so I can connect this new drainage run that I'm doing, this experimental drainage run that I'm doing. I'm just gonna Y it right into here. All right, so I've moved enough stone now where I've actually uncovered the perforated high octane pipe that we're using here. So this is pretty interesting, but this is also what I expected to happen with this experiment. You can see the fines from this limestone that was not washed. You can see how the fines get in there and they cover the perforations. Now, granted, this system, this part was definitely working. I'm not 100% sure though if this French drain finger that leads off of this blind inlet was working or not. But every time it rained, water was draining into that D box from this system. So it tells me that water was getting into it, but it could have just been getting into it from the blind inlet. It's hard to say though for sure. I'm sure some water was getting in from the perforations, but that's still kind of yet to be determined. So the next step is I'm going to clear more of this out of here, and I'm going to open this up. I'm going to cut this pipe, and I'm going to cut a section of this pipe out, because like I said, I'm going to put a Y here. I want to Y this new connection into here. And when I cut this pipe open, we're going to see how much sediment is actually in this pipe. So Robert, if you're watching this video, you might find this interesting, because this is some research here. All right, so I got more of this high octane pipe uncovered, and this is actually kind of interesting because the limestone with all that sediment, it's almost like it formed like a matrix in here. So it's like the sediment is keeping the limestone together underneath the fabric. And I mean, it's almost kind of solidified, but I know it allows water through it though, which is pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys can really see that. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna grab the hose, and I'm gonna run the hose right here. And I wanna see if the water makes it through this limestone with all this sediment. I just wanna see what happens. All right, so we got the hose on. Let's go ahead and see what happens here. Okay, so there is water coming through. Right there, it's bleeding out of the high octane perforations. So even with all that sediment in the limestone, that piece of high octane is still taking water through it. That's incredible. You can see that fabric is leaking water, and it's going through a lot of sediment. All right, let me go ahead and cut the pipe open. I want to see how much sediment is actually in this piece of high octane here. All right, so I went ahead and I just used that Sawzall to cut out a section of pipe. That way I can go ahead and install this Y right here, and then we'll put a 45 on the end so we can grab our new drain line. But I want to show you guys this. So this is FDM high octane. I mean, there is sediment at the bottom. Look at that. So there is some sediment at the bottom, but not a whole lot. Not compared to what I was expecting to be in there because of all this fines. Because of all these fines right here that came in this unwashed limestone. I thought for sure it was going to be way worse than that. Now, that's not to say that these fines are hindering this pipe's performance, because more than likely they probably are, because the fines are probably packing around here and not allowing water to get into this pipe as well as it could if we would have used actual wash stone. But that's what this research is for, because like I said, I would rather do this on my own property and have the research here than do it on a client's property. So this is very interesting. All right, so what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna put this big 12 by 12 sump box right here, right before that Y. And I'm gonna do that because, one, I have this on hand just laying around in my boneyard over there, so I might as well utilize it for something. And two, the main reason we're using it is that way this will hopefully collect the majority of the sediment and debris that gets into this solid line before that debris can enter into our perforated line, to try to keep this cleaned out, to keep it as clean as possible, basically. So remember, all this is just experimental. This is all for research and development purposes and to see what happens. All right, so to keep this entire line solid until it reaches this Y and then it transfers to the perforated, I'm gonna use a piece of scrap dual wall that I had laying around. So we got corrugated exterior, smooth interior. I just turned the Y up so I could work with it. Once I get this 45 right here hooked in and get the angle I want to be able to connect in here with another little piece of dual wall that's over there, I'm gonna tile tape this up real good, and then I'll push this Y back down to get my angle that I want and get my pitch, and then we'll start putting this pipe in here. All right, so we got our box in, so that's going to be our sediment trap. That's going to hopefully catch all the sediment and debris that makes it through this solid line, and it'll fall into here before it enters our perforated line, because we want to try to keep that perforated line as clean as possible. But remember, this is for research and development purposes, so we're curious to see what happens over the years. We went ahead and we put some filter fabric underneath that basin, because that basin is already perforated, because this basin came off of a job site. I'm just repurposing it for this experiment. Now, whenever you're working with triple wall pipe, if you do decide to work with this pipe for whatever reason, it's going to be the thin wall sewer fittings, the PVC ones for SDR 35 and Schedule 20 PVC. They're going to be used for this pipe. Now, what I like to do is I like to use a drain pipe adhesive for HDPE to bond the HDPE to the PVC. Basically, this isn't going to make a chemical bond or a weld, because you can't melt HDPE plastic to PVC. So this will just make a rubber bond. Basically, this stuff turns to like a rubber, and it just fuses the pipes together like any old adhesive would. This one has some additives in it that help keep roots out of the system. I'm not really too worried about roots here because all I have is grass. I just do that just as extra precaution to help keep the water in and keep sediment and divots from forming in the yard here. And I'm also going to be tile taping the joints as well. All right, so as you can see, every single joint I go ahead and I use the drain pipe adhesive, and then I use a pretty liberal amount of tile tape on every joint. Now, another thing to keep in mind whenever you're working with this triple wall stuff, it comes prefabbed with bell ends that are twisted on the end of the pipe. But what can happen, and I have a piece over here actually that came without a bell end, the bell ends can actually fall off. They can pop off in the manufacturing process because this stuff is made so quickly to be budget friendly. Quality control is a little bit off, so the bell ends can actually come off if you get a bad piece. So what I always recommend doing whenever you're working with this triple wall, use your tile tape and just tile tape that joint as well. You might as well do that before you bury it, just in case, just to be on the safe side. Let me see real quick if this one comes off. Yeah, no, that one's pretty on there, but sometimes you'll get a faulty one. So better to be safe than sorry. Just tile tape that joint as well. All right, so we always call this stuff the honey. That's our little our little name for this stuff because it looks like honey, but you definitely don't want to eat it. Now what I do is I don't apply it to both ends. I just apply it to the bell end of the fitting or the cup link, and then I just slide my spigot end in there like that, and kind of rotate it just a little bit just to kind of spread that honey all over it. And then once I do that, then I'll go ahead and I'll grab my tile tape and I'll kind of lift this up out of the trench so I can work, and I'll tile tape it. All right guys, so I'm not completely finished installing this, but I haven't been filming too much because I'm trying to get this done before I lose the daylight. But basically, in my low points that I have right in here, I'm putting these PVC crosses that have a little sump bottom. Let me show you what one looks like. I'm putting 3 of those in, and then I'm gonna start the run with an elbow. But basically, that's a PVC cross with a plug or a cap, PVC cap glued on the bottom to create a small sump bottom. That way debris can also fall down in there. Sediment, anything that's heavier, will also fall in there and get collected, so I can just shop vac that out. So I'm hoping to collect debris that gets in on 3 of these, and then the very last big sump box at the end to collect the final debris that makes it past all this before it gets into that perforated line and then into the main line. And then the main line dumps into that D box, so debris could gather in there too if it needs to. All right, so we just finished this quick system for research and development purposes. The very end of this line, I ran out of triple wall and I wasn't gonna buy more, so I just went ahead and just threw a piece of Schedule 20 PVC on the end of this cup link. I went ahead and solvent welded it and then started my run with the elbow. That's going to get a 4-inch grate. And go ahead and we'll check the level. And we got good fall starting off. And it levels out a little bit right there. And a little bit of fall right there. And then we really start falling right here. This is where the ground really breaks. And we got some fall there. We got a lot of fall right there. All right, starts to level out a little bit here. Let's see what it's doing right here. And it's falling there. And then we got a lot of fall right here. A lot of fall right here. This is where the ground really breaks here after we went through that hill. Got a lot of fall right here into our sediment trap box. All right. Next step is with triple wall, you want to pack the pipe in real good before you bury it. So I'm going to get to doing that now. All right, so I'm almost out of daylight, but I got pretty much all the ground wet and settled here. I'm just using some of that extra fill dirt to put in a few areas here and try to get everything sloped towards these drains. Now, as you notice, I have risers sticking out of here. I went ahead and I glued those in. After I get everything cleaned up and graded how I want, I'll go ahead and I'll use an inner diameter pipe cutter to cut those risers down to grade. I just put those on there. That way I don't get a bunch of dirt and crap in the system. Then the very last thing I'll do, I'll fill that back up with some stone. I'll stitch that fabric up and close this up, fill that in, make sure all this dirt is settled, put the grate on, move all this back, this landscape fabric back into place, and then move some stone over it. While testing this system with the garden hose, it provides a perfect example of why I wanted to put so many sediment traps on here and that large 12 by 12 basin at the end to collect anything that does make it past these PVC-T sumps, because you can see the water collecting the sand and sediment and running it into the system. Now, over time, this has gotten a lot better because grass has actually grown around this now. This video is old and I'm just now posting it. I just had finished editing it and got it posted out. So I will be doing an update on this system, and I will be running a drain camera through it so we can see how much sediment has built up in the line. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something from it, give us a thumbs up. It really supports us. It supports the channel. I want to thank everybody and all of our viewers and subscribers for watching. It means a whole lot to us that you guys would actually watch and enjoy the content that we put out. And if you need any drainage work, exterior drainage work in the Tampa Bay area, whether it's residential or commercial, give Stormwater Drainage Solutions a call at 813-614-3456. We got you covered.